call of the Hogs can be heard all the way to San Francisco.
You're listening to Pod at the Palace with Curtis Wilkerson on Inside Arkansas.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday, and welcome back to the Pod at the Palace. I'm your host, Curtis Wilkerson of Inside Arkansas. How's everybody doing today? I think the monsoon is returning to Fayetteville for the next few days. I see. Shocker, like we get spoiled by some dry weather for a few days, and here it is right back with us. And hey, I know it's going to heat up eventually, and it's going to be scorching, and people like me are going to be begging for a little bit of rain. But man, oh man, like this is as many storms and downpours over the last couple months consistently that I can ever remember. It's crazy. I'm trying to get outside, man. And I definitely don't want it raining on our parade this weekend with the Super Regionals in town. We're so excited about that. And just a quick reminder before we get started with the show here today, Friday at noon, Inside Arkansas Live is going to be out at Alumni Hall, 3417 North College Avenue. We're really excited to get out there. We do a lot of giveaways. Our live shows are always a ton of fun, and that's just your place to go if you need to get geared up with your Razorback apparel before Arkansas and Tennessee take the field this weekend. And then Saturday, Sunday, and if necessary, Monday, we're going to be back out at Foghorns right across the street from Baumwalker Stadium for pregame and postgame coverage of the Super Regional. Come out there, hang out with us. I'll be there. John will be there. Obviously, Andrew, the baseball guru, will be out there. And we're pumped for it, looking forward to it, and hope to get to see some of you guys and meet with you. Once again, it was really cool, all the people that came out last weekend. So there's that. Let's see. What else? News and notes. I don't know, man. Like, according to DraftKings, there's a as good of a chance that John Calipari coaches the New York Knicks next season as there is Dan Hurley. So that was kind of surprising. But in all seriousness, both of them were at plus 2,000 odds. So, bet 10 to win $210 if you think that's going to happen. But that was when I saw that, I was like, what? Man, Karl Anthony Towns must have some pull over there, baby. That's crazy. But like Mike Malone makes a lot of sense. Just got fired from the Nuggets, heavy favorite. Jay Wright was in that mix. I don't think he's going to do it either. Mike Budenholzer, won a ring with the Bucks. He was on the list. Taylor Jenkins was on the list. So a bunch of guys there, but I saw Cal was on like the top 10 of the odds, and I was like, whoa, hold on a second, man. That's crazy. But John Calipari has been at Van Buren and Harrison High School the last couple of days. I just have a feeling he's not going to be the coach of the New York Knicks tomorrow. You guys agree with me on that one? I think you probably do. Hey, today's episode is presented by our new partners over at Hickey and Hull Law. Man, divorce and custody cases they're too important to try to face alone. It gets tricky. It gets messy. Let Hickey and Hull Law provide you with persistent and diligent representation to help guide you through the entire process. They have handled thousands of family law cases and have experienced nearly every single possible scenario that might come up in these situations. They know every case that they take is important. They strive to give each one of them the utmost time and care that it deserves. They understand that it's crucial to their clients that they keep them updated on their cases and that they're able to provide advice and counsel throughout the process. They will take time to meet with the clients, respond to emails, and they'll always return your calls. Hickey and Hull Law offices located all across the state of Arkansas in Fayetteville, Fort Smith, Little Rock, and Mena. You can call them today at 479-434-2414, or you can check out their website, or it's hickeyandhull.com, by the way, or scan the QR code at the top right of your screen. Hickey and Hull Law, things are about to get better. Okay. Man, news and notes to start. What's going on in the world of college basketball? Nothing. All right. Eric Musselman got another player. It's kind of funny. They got a commitment from the kid from High Point. Really nice mid-major guard. He decommits from Muss over the weekend. He was committed for like 2 days, and then he winds up immediately signing with Ole Miss. So Ole Miss winds up picking this kid up. And then later in the day on Wednesday, Eric Musselman picks up an Ivy League transfer who shot it real well, scored 17 a game or whatever. The dude he doesn't run out of roster spots. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Stark difference from what we're dealing with over here. North Carolina's roster, low-key kind of stinks, but it costs $14 million in NIL. Did you guys see that story? $14 million is what they put into that roster, and they don't have a point guard. And they don't have any depth. And man, I mean, the international player that just got is good, but that's crazy. And it makes you wonder too, like if their roster costs that much money, and it's a bubble team, honestly, on paper. Maybe they outperform that, but this is not you think about a $14 million payroll there for a college basketball team. You're thinking, wow, man, this could be a Final Four capable squad here. Not the case on paper for North Carolina. Like, they could very much be in the same situation they were last year. And if they're putting that much money into it, it makes you wonder, like, how did they lose, Drake Powell to the draft? How did they lose Van Allen Lubin to Will Wade, North Carolina State? How the hell did they lose Ian Jackson? It's kind of crazy there, but whatever. Wild. Some more international players landing at high major schools. I think we're going to continue to see that. A lot of schools maybe didn't fill out the needs that they wanted to via the portal, or they lost guys to the draft process that they weren't expecting, whatever. And so instead of filling in with lesser heralded portal players or freshmen that they're taking a flyer on, that international route just becomes more and more popular. Several more, awesome non-conference games have been announced. UConn just putting together a gauntlet of a schedule. A lot of really big games, throughout college basketball. Nothing for Arkansas though. I don't even get my hopes up anymore when I get a notification. The team is salty. Don't get me wrong. Don't mistake me here. But just the nature, we've talked about it. Just the way that Cal and his staff has gone about building this thing. Retention forward, getting their freshmen earlier, and just filling those gaps through the portal. Between that, and then we know Cal kind of takes his sweet time a little bit with some of the other stuff there. It's just created the slowest of drips. Kind of been there's a difference in excitement about the team that you have, and we have plenty of that, man. And just excitement from the off season. Like it's kind of been a boring off season from a news standpoint so far, but I'm sure something is going to happen eventually. It has to. It's just a matter of time. So will they add this piece that we get excited about and have something to talk about, another guy to evaluate, and just kind of revamp all our expectations and, rotations and all those thoughts. But man, all the scheduling stuff is coming. We talked about it a day or two ago. We're waiting on official dates on some games. We're waiting to see who the opponent is from the ACC that's coming in here. We're waiting to see who Arkansas is going to play in Madison Square Garden and what the rest of the schedule is going to look like. It's coming at some point. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it for sure. But hey, in the meantime, we're having fun looking ahead at how this roster projects in all kinds of different areas. And I know that we talked yesterday about, the recipe being there for Arkansas to be an improved offensive team, surprisingly enough. And I'm optimistic on that front. But the next question becomes, will it be at the expense of your defense, which has been, borderline elite and the calling card of Razorback basketball for the last several years? We were referencing that CBS Sports article from Isaac Trotter, who said, if you remember, that Arkansas had the potential to be top 25 nationally in both offense and defense. So we've taken a look at offense. Let's look at their lockdown ability here. We're going to coin that phrase, lockdown ability. Spurt ability is Eric Musselman's. He started that on the offensive end. We're going to go lockdown ability on defense. So let me pull up KenPom here, and we'll kind of do some of the same things that we did the other day. Let me pull up Arkansas's page, and we were going through it, if you remember yesterday, offensively, and it was like, it's somewhere in between 50 and 60 nationally. 100 and something there. That's not great. Just haven't finished inside the top 40 in a minute. It's been crazy. Defensively, they've really, really held up. Last year, they were awesome. 18th in the country in adjusted defensive efficiency, according to KenPom. That was great. Now, the year before, Muss's last year, it's when they stunk at everything. They were 133rd defensively, very uncharacteristic for his teams. They mailed it in, didn't they? I mean, they just packed it in at some point there during the season. But the 3 years prior to that, with all the NCAA tournament success, let's see, in 2023, they were 17th in the country. In 2022, they were 11th in the country. And then in 2021, they were 10th in the country. So this has been a team that has been stingy on the defensive end of the floor for the last 5 years. And that included the coaching change and Cal coming over this past season. It's crazy to think about because all the reasons that we talked about the offense, and we weren't excuse making, but it was like, man, the guys in and out of the lineup and not knowing who you're going to have. And, just kind of completely changed the way you had to play. Of course, they weren't great on the offensive end. They were really good defensively despite all that, which I don't think is talked about enough, honestly. But, again, like pulling up that KenPom page yesterday, we talked about, man, Arkansas was really in the green offensively in a lot of different areas. There are some where they were not, and we really addressed those. And so I looked at Arkansas from a defensive standpoint, and man, there's a lot of green on there. The areas that they weren't, interestingly enough, was opponent's free throw percentage. You can't control that. You know what I mean? Like opponent shot 73.0% from the charity stripe against Arkansas. It's 233rd. You can control putting them on the foul line, which Arkansas ranked 81st in the country. So kind of in that top 25 percentile. So they didn't foul a lot. They were really good at defending without fouling, which is great because they didn't have a whole lot of players. So they needed to stay out of foul trouble in a big way. But when teams got there, they just made them. You can't control that. Like it's a free throw. You can't contest it. Outside of that, it was non-steal turnovers where they ranked 286. So, forcing shot clock violations, travels. When they got their turnovers, they were usually steals, but I would prefer that if you're going to get them. Like live ball turnovers are where you can get out and transition and create a little bit of an issue for teams. So there was a lot to like with what Arkansas did defensively, even though there were some areas where they really, really struggled. It's a kind of a fascinating deal there. But how does this group look on paper going into next season? So far, we'll see how it winds up. The feedback that we get on certain guys and, if they add a piece, whatever. Let me start by being very, very clear. I do not believe that this will be a bad defensive team. I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't. But it will be a different one. In ways, I think that they're going to be improved. And in other ways, I think that they're going to take a step back. And what you hope is like, hey, does it either balance itself out or does it make you a little bit better, right? Where could Arkansas be better on the defensive end of the floor? One area that stands out to me, same as offense, it's retention. You know what I mean? Like you're going to have multiple guys on the floor at all times who this is not new to them. And they play together and they understand the coverages, understand what the coaching staff is asking for. And that's big. And all four of them are beneficial or helpful on the defensive end of the floor in some way. DJ Wagner's a really good on-ball defender, perimeter defender. He's physical, sets the tone at the point of attack, can attack dribblers. I love it. Billy Richmond, tenacious, man, on the defensive end of the floor. We know how he is. Carter Knox got so much. Remember how lost Carter was for the first, 13, 14 games up through Christmas? Lost out there. He didn't have a clue what was going on. His improvement throughout the course of SEC play was nothing short of remarkable. And it got to the point where he was a borderline lockdown type of guy on the wing. Now they drop him down to defend the four at times. Sometimes it would work okay. And then he was also a mismatch problem on the other end. Sometimes he struggled because Colin Murray Boyles is really, really good. And Darian Williams is really, really good. But he became a plus defender after being a major minus when he first arrived. And then Trevin, we know his length, his ability to block and alter shots. And he made some strides as well in other areas. We'll talk about him in a minute. So I think that Arkansas is going to be better from that standpoint, understanding coverages. You got guys who've done this before, who can be communicators on the floor to the new guys and to the young guys. It's really, really important. You didn't have that last year. More Billy Richmond. I think he's going to play more, and he changes things defensively. Tough, aggressive. His length, sometimes you can put him on point guards and really, really harass teams there. I like it. I think, that kind of stuff is what can help Arkansas create some more turnovers to fuel their transition game. I think they are significantly improved from a physicality standpoint with Nick Pringle in there inside. Listen, that you're going to feel him when you're in there in the paint. He's going to be a bruiser. He's going to be a guy that's going to knock you off your spot, post defender. He'll bump cutters. All those things are at play there. And then that also goes into finishing possessions, because all year, for the most part, Arkansas had really, really good first shot defense. Like, how many, clean looks did teams get against Arkansas? How many times did a team run a set play and get a layup or a wide open shot or whatever against the Razorbacks? It wasn't a ton. The problem was they had a hard time finishing possessions at times. And so, when you had Big Z out there, you were in a situation where it was like, okay, we're going to have some rim protection on the back end. Like, he's going to be able to block and alter some shots. But we know he's not a very good defensive rebounder. And so Arkansas really struggled from that standpoint. Closing out possessions is huge. Limiting opportunities is huge. How many games did we look at the stat sheet where Arkansas, kind of won in most areas, but then you're like, wait a second, how in the world did, Florida take 14 more shots in this game than Arkansas did? Well, it's because they were getting offensive rebounds and second shot opportunities. That's going to go down. That's going to help Arkansas. I like the length that they have in the front court, the 3 through the 5. Whether it's Carter or Billy on the wing, that's plus length there positionally. And then you're going to have, 2 6'10 plus guys in your front court almost at all times, between Trevin and Malik and Nick Pringle there. That's good. That's a lot of arms. It's like the inflatable guy out there at the used car place that you got to navigate passes through, that you got to shoot over the top of. That's good. I think they're going to be more switchable in the front court, which is something they try to do a lot. But how many times are they, getting, Big Z and ball screen action and getting him switched off on a guard? And then you're like, oh, here we go. Like, our man's out there on an island. A guy like Nick Pringle is going to be way better served and suited to handle some of that stuff. And knock on wood, like, seriously, if you're listening, knock on it right now. Maybe they'll just be healthy. Maybe they will. Because if you had a healthy Jonas Adu in the paint all season, Arkansas is a top 10 defense instead of a top 20. He changed everything for this team at the times that he was healthy and able to move like he was, used to moving and do the things he was used to doing. Such an instinctual player. It changed everything for Arkansas, but they just didn't have it consistently. Having these guys healthy and on the floor is going to be really, really key for the Razorbacks. So there's a lot of reasons why you would think, hey, these guys could be good, better, in some areas that they struggle in, for sure. Where could it be worse, though? Well, one, you don't have Adu Thero. And listen, Adu is great defensively. TB does some really interesting things there on the defensive end of the floor. He's kind of a unicorn with, his size and his length and his ability to shoot, and he can move pretty well. But Adu is a Swiss Army knife out there. He was so physical, so athletic. He could literally guard 1 through 5. Very disruptive, gets in passing lanes. Like, he was had he been healthy the entire season, I think he should have been all SEC defense anyway. But if he wouldn't have had to miss that time, he absolutely would have been. And, when you had Trevin in there, we talked about this yesterday, and I'm getting ready to run the numbers again and see the difference. But if you remember yesterday, we took from the start of the season through the date that Adu got hurt. And then we took from the time Trevin was inserted into the lineup through the end of the year. And what you noticed was Arkansas was almost 60 spots higher in offensive efficiency with Trevin in the lineup as opposed to Adu. That was incredible. A huge difference. And you could tell, like, Arkansas things really opened up for them on that end of the floor during that time period. But it also felt like they got a little bit worse on the defensive end. So that's kind of what I want to check out here. So let's see. Let me go real quick to 2025. And so we'll go from the start of the season in November to the date that Adu got hurt, which was the Missouri game on February 22nd. And let this update, and then let's see where Arkansas landed. They were 45th. So defensively, Arkansas came in at 19th in the country. Okay. From the time that the season started until Adu Thero went down. Arkansas was 19th nationally on the defensive end of the floor. So now let me flip this real quick. And from the day of his injury through the end of the season, so once they inserted Trevin into the equation, there we go. Let me scroll down here just real quick and find Arkansas. 44th. So they were 60 spots higher offensively with Trevin in instead of Adu, and they were 25 spots lower defensively. So there was a little bit of trade-off there. Trevin is an impactful defender in ways, but he's also not Adu in a lot of ways. And so what I'm wondering here is, will Trevin Brazil sit down and guard for 30 plus minutes a night, twice a week? Like, is he going to do that? Is he going to do it consistently? Is he going to bang in the paint? Is he going to defend on the perimeter? Because that was one of the things that we saw from him. All of a sudden, he was, switching out on the perimeter, and he was sitting down. He was in a defensive stance, and he wasn't letting guys blow by him. He was recovering and blocking shots around the rim. He looked like a madman in there, and he sustained it for, the last few weeks there of the entire season. Can he do it when he's the man, when he's dependent on, to play huge minutes, which they're going to need him to do? And is he going to be able to do that every night? Is he going to be able to do it against these mid-majors? Is he going to be able to do it on a, random Tuesday night at South Carolina when there's no fans out there in the crowd, or the games don't have as much consequence? We will see what that looks like. But either way, I think not having a guy that profiles like Adu, just that kind of jack of all trades defensively, it's going to impact you. And I don't see a guy who can do that. Yeah, you have guys who can defend different spots or whatever. Not all five. Not the way that Adu did. Malik Ewan. We know that he's just an extremely gifted offensive center. But there are questions about him on the defensive end of the floor, particularly defending in space, pick and roll defense, right? Which is something that, John Calipari teams have been notoriously bad at over the course of the last several years. It's just true, and it's real. It's a thing. They got better last year when Jonas was in there. Here's where I'm at with Malik, though. If I'm being honest with you, he's pretty mobile for his size. You can really see it shine on the offensive end of the floor. Hopefully he's a little bit more dialed in on, playing on a better team with better teammates around him and all that. I think that he's going to be significantly better than Big Z was as a pick and roll defender, drop coverage in space, whatever, if he has to switch out there, but probably not as good as Jonas. Right. So you'll take an upgrade there over one guy and maybe a little bit of a downgrade from the other. But Pringle, on the other hand, I think is a guy who profiles really well. I think he's a little bit more switchable there. I think he can guard the 4 and the 5. I think he's athletic enough to where he could be a pretty good pick and roll defender. So overall, you might be slightly better. Like if you go to your bench, you won't have as much drop off, whatever. Both those guys are significantly better than Z on the defensive end of the floor, and maybe not quite as good as Jonas. Jonas is really, really good in there, but that's okay. It's not the end of the world for sure. What else? I think physicality, like we said, is going to be way, way up. This Arkansas team is not going to have as much shot blocking now. That's okay. Because part of the reason why they had to have shot blocking at times last year is because, they were getting beat in different spots. You had to have guys help over, whatever, so you can shore some things up. And rim protection can mean a number of different things, right? It doesn't have to be all blocking shots. Think about that Kentucky game where they just said, you know what? We're just going to come down. We're going to dump it into Amari Williams every possession, and we're just going to let him go to work on Big Z. And he just scored on him over and over and over and over and over again. There was really nothing Arkansas could do about it. They knew if they sent double teams, he just sprayed out and Kentucky would knock down a 3. So he was just out there on an island. People aren't going to do that to Nick Pringle. They're just not. Much better holding up physically, walling up, chesting up, being one-on-one post defender, as opposed to what you had there. Ewan, I think, is a better one-on-one defender than he is defender in space and pick and roll defender. He's a big boy and he's mobile. So if he's got the want to in him, he's got that dog in him, then he should be just fine in there. So are they going to block as many shots? They were one of the better, I think they were top 10, top 20 in the country when it came to block percentage. No, but maybe their 2-point percentage defense will be improved, right? So there's a little bit of a trade-off there, I think. What else? Oh, I mean, the biggest thing for me, honestly, and the jury's just going to be out until we get into the season, is can these freshmen guard? Can they guard? Because they have to. Darius Acuff looks like he can. You look at the dude and you're like, man, he looks like an SEC running back, strong. He's got that physical frame already. And, Acuff looks like he can guard, but he hasn't consistently. It's kind of been a thing for him. He has flashes where he'll sit down. He has moments where he'll sit down. You're like, wow, okay, this dude can really do. He's got it in him, but it hasn't been a consistent plus in his game. That's something that's going to have to improve for him. In fairness, that was also the case for Boogie, who wound up being very, very good and impactful on the defensive end of the floor for Arkansas as a true freshman. Very underrated defender. He did a great job. Malik Thomas does not look like he can defend in the SEC yet from a physicality standpoint, but he's got that dog in him. I mean, he was picking dudes up 94 feet in the McDonald's All-American game and forcing tie-ups and diving on loose balls and everything. So he's going to get out there and compete with you for sure. The question is, does he put on enough strength and, and some size between now and the start of the season to where he can hold up against SEC 2 guards? Because a lot of those guys are going to be in the NBA next year. And he might too. You know what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong. But getting that body right is going to be the question for him. So we'll have to see about that because, you are losing Boogie, who's very good defensively, and Nelly Davis, very, very underrated and impactful defender as well. So the jury's going to be out on those guys for a little bit there. Now, before we get out of here, I want to do the one other thing on Torvik with the projections where, let's see, right now, it's got Arkansas projected at a top 10 defense, right? But if you remember, they've still got a Dude Thero in there. So I've got to go in here and manually subtract him from the equation. So let me take him out real quick and update this and see what Arkansas's projected adjusted defensive efficiency looks like. And it just takes a couple seconds here for that to reset and upload, and then we'll go back there and compare it to everything else. It's taking its sweet time here. Okay, there it is. So Arkansas's adjusted defensive efficiency, wow, it actually doesn't change that much. So beforehand, it had Arkansas at 93.3, so giving up basically 93.3 points per 100 possessions, so less than a point per possession. And it just goes from 93.3 to 93.8. So that's really good. So let me go back here and see where 93.8 would rank in their projections. It would be #13th. So Arkansas is still projected, as a top 15 defense in the country. So, man, that's good. That's real good. That's encouraging. So, I think we're going to have a situation here where, maybe he's on to something. Maybe our man Isaac Trotter is on to something. Arkansas can have a top 25 level offense and defense after all. But anyway, I'm going to get out of here. Appreciate you guys for tuning in with us as always. Make sure you get subscribed where you need to get subscribed to the Inside Arkansas YouTube channel. Find us in the audio version wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever. We'll be back in the morning as always. It's been Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas and the Pod at the Palace. Y'all have a good day.